Welcome once again to Shelf Life Book Reviews Online. This time out, it is my pleasure to bring to your attention two very highly recommended books, which when you go to your local bookstore, I hope you will seek them out and purchase them as well, because they are definitely recommended reading. The first book is The Railway Beat, A Century of Canadian Pacific Police Service by David Lauren Jones. This is published by Fifth House, and it retails for $24.95. The creation of the railway system across Canada brought a whole new degree of commerce. It brought people together. People were connected from coast to coast. It was a long process in the beginning, and this book does talk about the beginnings, but it also talks about a very important part of the Canadian Pacific Railway, and that was the police service. With any new venture, often law enforcement officials were called into the fray because not everybody was on the up and up. The book looks at the very first, the beginnings of the Canadian Pacific Railway law enforcement. Specifically, they talk about a gentleman called Sam Steele, who was one of the original members of the Northwest Mounted Police. Now, it says he monitored the whiskey business and was also in charge of warring factions among the indigenous population. But he was also brought in to the CPR because there were people who tried to steal things from the railway system. And it says during the construction of the CPR, he was in charge of policing the line across the prairies and the mountains of BC, and he kept law and order. And in the book, which is filled with a lot of vintage photos as well of the early days of the railway system, there are also tales of people who knew that there were shipments of a lot of money, a lot of valuables, and they thought of ways to rob the trains, just like the old Wild West stagecoach days. Well, this was trains, of course. And there are a lot of stories of people who did succeed in robbing the trains and actually killing members of the Canadian Pacific Railway employees. So it was a treacherous job. It was just not a simple job of standing by the trains with your gun and being security. The guns actually came into play, and a lot of people were killed, both the good guys and the bad guys. And the book is filled with fascinating stories. There's also a lot of stories of people who tried to put things on the train track to derail the trains, blow up the trains. And the Canadian Pacific Railway Police Force, they were there at all times to make sure that this did not happen. So if you like a good crime story, it's a true crime story. So if you like true crime, this is definitely a book that we highly recommend. The Railway Beat can't be beat when it comes to a very informative book. The second book that I want to draw to your attention is How Magicians Think: Misdirection, Deception, and Why Magic Matters by Joshua J. This is published by Workman, and it retails for $35. When we were growing up, a lot of us were just fascinated by the world of magic. It was simply magical. And this book really is magical in many ways. Joshua J. is a noted magician. Now, when I first received the book, I thought he might be related to Ricky J., who is a magician, and he does a lot of card tricks and things of that nature. They are not related, but they are related in the fact that they do magic, they do magical things, and they have entertained millions of people for decades. Joshua J. talks, there are 52 chapters in this book, so he looks at all facets of the world of magic, and it's fascinating unto itself. Now, some of the chapters are: do you have magic students? Do magicians insure their hands? How are you using technology? What is the hardest audience to fool? Is magic art? What are the Magic Olympics? Is magic memorabilia valuable? And what's the next big thing in magic? Well, he does talk about some of the most famous magicians of all time: Harry Houdini, Penn and Teller, David Copperfield, David Blaine, and so many more. They're the ones that have kept the world of magic so powerful and so strong. But he says he hopes that in the future there will be more women in magic and African Americans as well. But the book really is very nostalgic. He looks at the history of magic and where it's come from, where it's going to. There are only so many ways that you can do a magic trick. You have to do variations. And in this book, he does not expose any magic tricks. That's not the purpose of the book, is to talk about the world of magic and his interactions with novice magicians. He even is a pen pal to people in jail who are there for life sentences. And these people in jail entertain their fellow prisoners with magic acts. So they write to Joshua Jay, and he tells them his ideas for their next tricks, and it's really interesting. He also talks about how to do magic for blind people. So if you're looking for a book that is really magical, and I can say that truly and with pun intended, it is definitely a book that you will be riveted to. It's like a classic fiction book. You really can't put it down because you wonder what he's going to talk about next. The chapters are short, to the point, and for anybody who's interested in magic, you will definitely find it of great interest. So those are the two books this week, and I'm going to do something a little magical here. So thank you very much for watching Shelf Life Book Reviews this week, and I hope you will keep in touch. Let me know what you think of these videos. Send me your emails, positive and negative. And as always, stay safe, stay social distancing, stay sane, and stay in touch. And have a magical week. Bye for now.